Good evening, FRC. I have a little Christmas story to share with you today. There was once a man who would love to look at the beautiful songbirds in his yard, the sparrows, the chickadees, the nuthatches, the wrens, and more. As Christmas time and the snow approached, he noticed that the birds were having a hard time getting some food. So he would go out and he scattered birdseed on the snow in his yard, only to see the squirrels eat what had been given for the birds. So he thought he would outsmart the squirrels, and he placed birdseed up on a plate, up the ground, in a bird feeder. But you know what's going to happen there. The squirrels were able to get that as well. Then he finally built an elaborate cage that he knew was squirrel-proof. But to his dismay, the man found that it also seemed bird-proof, as he observed his feathered friends flying helplessly about the cage, seeing the food but unable to discover the way to get in what they so wanted. He even then went out to the yard and went up to the food cage and pointed to the opening that the birds seemed to be missing, but as you can imagine, as he approached them, they of course would fly away. So he stood in the snow-covered field, listening to the Christmas carols playing from nearby church, and become frustrated by his inability to give to the birds what they so desperately wanted. At that point, he knew that if only he could become like one of them, somehow turn himself into a bird, he could easily show them what they needed to know. As he pondered the situation in the snow and surrounded by the beauty of nature, the sounds of the season, and the thought of Christmas's past, the man recalled a verse in the Bible he had heard so many times before. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, from John 1. And he now realized more than ever before the reason why God came down as a little child. Jesus didn't come to earth as something like the great and terrible Wizard of Oz, with flames erupting from behind the curtain and thunderous sounds of trumpets and drums. He did not come to mankind to overwhelm us with power, but he arrived as gently as one could, in the pure form of love and peace. Again, we do not read in John that Jesus came to us in fire and sword to rule over us, but the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Now, how do we celebrate Christmas? Even those who don't believe in Christ will celebrate Christmas. They observe it. It's a legal holiday. It's on the calendars. Won't be any mail. Banks are closed. Stores are closed. The roads will be empty. Businesses are out. That's observing Christmas. But Christians, we, more than observe Christmas, we need to keep Christmas. But how do we really keep Christmas? Are you and I willing to forget what we have done for other people and to remember what other people have done for us? Are we willing and ready to ignore what the world owes us and to think what we owe the world? Are we willing to see that our fellow men are just as real as we are and try to look behind their faces to their hearts hungering for joy? Are we ready to understand that probably the only good reason for our existence is not what we are going to get out of life, but what we are going to give? Are we willing to do these things for a day? Yes, then we can keep Christmas. Are we willing and ready to stoop down and consider the needs and desires of little children, and to remember the weakness and loneliness of people who are growing old? Are we willing to stop asking how much our friends love us and ask ourselves whether we love them enough? Are we ready to bear in mind the things that other people have to bear in their hearts? Are we ready to trim our lamps so that it will give more light and less smoke, and to carry it in front so that our shadow will fall behind us? And are we willing and ready to make a grave for our ugly thoughts and a garden for our good thoughts? If we can do these things, then we can keep Christmas. Are we willing to believe that Christ's love is the strongest thing in the world, stronger than hate, stronger than evil, stronger than death, and that the blessed life which began in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago is the image and brightness of the eternal love of Christ, then we can keep Christmas. FRC members, have a blessed Christmas.